Friends and enemies, welcome to another episode of the CBP. A beautiful holiday Monday here, a little seasonally cool, I think, for Labor Day weekend. My name is Joey. That's Len, reporting live from the basement and the basement, as always. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Basement squared. I'm all right, Joey. It's freezing over here. As you said, it's unseasonably cold. Didn't expect it to get this cold this fast. And it's just a stark reminder that winter is just around the corner for us, which is too bad. Labor Day is always the time that you look back, the summer's done. School starts, at least for the most part. I think school's already started in some areas.
Tomorrow starts here, right? Ontario?
Some parts of Ontario started even last week. And my daughter starts in 2 days. Imagine tomorrow is a PA day already for my daughter's school. They won. Second year in a row that they've done this. Either way, how are things over there with you, Joey?
They're great, man. Did a bunch of yard work today. Took care of the grass, trimmed some trees back. Took the dog for a nice long walk this morning. My wife is very pregnant now, so she came with us.
What's the estimated date, like month-wise?
November.
No, you don't have to go any further.
Yeah, mid-November. I honestly I couldn't tell you the day anyway. I forget now, but it's mid-November. So we're getting there. Busy weekend. We went to a party on Saturday, which was nice with all the football guys. Friday, pretty chill evening. Yesterday, pretty slow day. It's good, man. Once in a while, take those weekends where you just kind of recoup and regenerate a little bit, right? Because like you mentioned there, even though you and I are not in school, it'll just seem busier everywhere you go tomorrow, right? So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all the kiddos though.
I'm gonna be in your neck of the woods on Saturday. Ye Old Squire or something like that. You know of that place?
Squire is on the mountain.
I'm gonna be there Saturday.
What are you doing there?
NHL 94 Championship of the Universe is taking place over there.
At Ye Old Squire.
Ye Old Squire. So a bunch of us
you're talking about on Upper Wellington?
I don't know the address, but it's something. It's on the mountain.
I'm pretty sure it's Wellington and Mohawk, maybe. No, not Wellington and Mohawk. Wellington and Gage.
I know it's just southwest of King's Forest. When I looked at the map, and it says it's on a mountain. And so it's going to be a good event to be there. And I'm going to test my skills against a whole bunch of others.
That's a great little bar. I've been there on St. Patrick's Day a couple of times. Great little spot.
Yeah, we rented out a room.
Yeah, the back room. Yep.
Yeah, so
that's pretty cool. I like that spot. That's good. Well, I wish you luck. Good to see everybody in the chat here. Appreciate you guys making time on a holiday Monday. I expect it to be a slow show tonight, but slow or not, we still have sponsors. The first of which, EasyDNS. Mark and the team at EasyDNS, okay? The best place for you to buy or port or bring or borrow whatever, a domain, and host it over on EasyDNS. Cheap, effective, efficient, and Mark is always there to help. I just ripped my finger open. Have a piece of skin. It's all right. It'll be fine. So anyway, if you want to do that, you can do that with Mark. He's always around to help. The support there is incredible. You can do all sorts of other stuff there too, whether you want to start doing some virtual private server stuff. We mentioned all the Bitcoin stuff all the time, the BTC Pay server, Bitcoin nodes, Nostr relays, things like this. On top of that, if you want to do stuff with stuff that's privacy related or privacy focused, so GPG and PGP email, both available to you, as well as a bunch of other stuff that we are totally forgetting. Len and I host our website on EasyDNS, and I'll tell you, it is outstanding. The level of service, obviously great. Mark is a friend of ours, friend of the show, and a friend of yours too. And you can expect all the same quality that we get. If you head over there, use CBP Media as the code and get 50% off your first round of buys. Can't beat it. Who's next?
Bull Bitcoin. It's a great place to buy and or sell your Bitcoin. I have no idea what the price of Bitcoin is, Joy. It's been days since I've looked at it, so I'm not. Maybe a good time to buy, maybe a good time to sell. But whatever the heck it is, Bull Bitcoin has you covered. Fees, I know that they're still rather cheap. I checked my node out just yesterday to see if it's still running. So fees seem cheap as of yesterday. So on-chain buys you do over there, obviously. But when they go up, and they will go up, it may be tomorrow, next month, next year, next decade, whatever it may be, but fees will go up. And when they do, you're going to be kicking yourself if you haven't yet learned something. But Bull Bitcoin gives you the opportunity to buy and sell on Lightning, and that's quick, fast, and cheap to do. You don't have to deal with the on-chain BS that's usually going on with a high-fee environment. Other things you could do with Bull Bitcoin, you can buy gift cards. So with your Bitcoin, you could buy gift cards through Bull Bitcoin and indirectly start spending your Bitcoin in the real world. So you could get a Starbucks coffee, you could get a card, and maybe get a Grande. I don't know what the heck they sell at the Starbucks. I'm not much of a Starbucks guy, but either way, it seems to be very popular. A lot of people like Starbucks. But other things you could do with Bull Bitcoin, you could also pay your bills, and that's pretty cool. So if you have a lot of Bitcoin and you don't want to start spending it, that's a good way to do it, is start paying off your bills using the Bitcoin that you've stacked over the years. Also, Bull Bitcoin has expanded into France. In the next few weeks, there's going to be some. They purchased Leon BTC, I think is the name of the company. I could be wrong. So they're expanding over there. So if anybody's listening from that side of the Atlantic, use our promo code. If you do that and you open up an account, $21 Canadian will be added to your account. No questions asked after you fund your account and provided necessary information.
Incredible. Last sponsor, Decentral Tech. Len, are the CBP branded bid axes going to be ready soon?
I think so. And we're going to get more information about that in a couple of days. We'll talk about that momentarily. So right now I don't know, but we'll find out.
Get excited for that. Decentral Tech is your home for mining that is wife friendly. Okay. This is the tagline that we use here on the program. Whether you want to get a board repaired, you want to buy a new board, you want to heat your house, you want to heat your garage, you want to set up a bid axe in the background of your podcast because you don't have one yet. You want to support the show by buying a CBP branded bid axe. You want to play the lottery. You want to solo mine. You want to pool mine. Doesn't matter. Jonathan and the boys over there, they got you, man. They got you. They are the best in class, like all our other sponsors. Can't beat it. I want to see you guys buying these things, not because we get a kickback. We don't. But mostly because, I think we've both become more zealous in this view that we have to decentralize the mining as much as possible, even if it means just little bits of hash rate scattered all over the place vis-a-vis these small units. So go to Decentral Tech, pick something up. It's not that expensive. Everything is built in for you. So you get the cooling in there. You can have whatever model you want in terms of terahash, exahash, whatever, the firepower you got. Different levels of power draw as well, fits your needs in whatever your household power situation is. Can't really beat that. And Len, like I mentioned there, your wife's not going to mind. It's not going to be that loud. At least some of them. You could get a loud one, but you don't have to get a loud one.
Yeah, if you're looking for a bid axe, in terms of how loud it is not. It's quiet as heck. But they also have other options you could get over there. So if you want to get, say, like an S19, that's going to be loud. And unless you put the Loki kit on it or something, then it could be much more quieter. But then there's also other options you could get. Decentral Tech is, let's see, there's mining that you could do, heating, home. So that's coming up this winter. People are going to have to start heating their homes with electricity. Why not use a miner to do it? And they have you covered. They'll give you the opportunity to buy, and they will help you learn how to use the equipment. But not just that, I'm going to be talking to Jonathan this coming Wednesday from Decentral Tech, and we'll be able to talk about the upcoming bid axe, CPP branded bid axe, and is anything else that's going on over there. So we'll be able to get an update with the CBP branded bid axe and everything else that's going on in the mining game. So Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. You want to just tune in for that.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Yeah, there's tons of stuff on the website. You can't miss it. As well as 3D paintings if you want to do that. Oh, Len's laundry is done. Okay, so where do you want to start? We can do housekeeping here first. Last week, in lieu of an interview, we did the first ever CBP live draft, fantasy draft, which was watched by way too many people. It's no one should really give a shit about that. But it was fun anyway. We had, Len, I don't know if you tuned in, but we had every person from the draft, save for one, attend the live draft. The room was packed.
What happened to the one?
He was coming home from work. He actually messaged me separately. He was coming home from work. He was trying to do it half in his car. And so he didn't want to join the stream, but he's still there. Anyways, it's so rare to have a draft where everyone can attend and make their picks live, even if they didn't join the stream. So I was really pumped about that. That was 50,000 sats per person to join. So we'll see how that turns out. I was a donor last year. I feel great about my team this year. Went with 3 running backs early. So a little bit against the grain there. I have another draft tomorrow. I may try and execute a different strategy, but looking forward to that. Like you said, we have Jonathan from Decentral Tech coming on Wednesday. And I think that's it for housekeeping. We should just go to the boost now, I guess, eh? Unless you have something else.
Good with that. Yeah.
That's it.
So Mo BTC Dick, 500 sats. Spicy rip, gentlemen. I'm just surprised Canada isn't front running unrealized gain tax.
Well, we're trying. We're trying. Don't give them any ideas. We are trying now.
The Bird, the Blank, 500 sats. Simply writes in the mandibles. Yeah, you're getting there.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Rander 666 sats. He says,
Hey,
Musk, RFK, and Tulsi all endorsing Trump should be enough to give him enough margin to overcome some shady shit. We all know the Dems are going to try to attack the vote somehow, but as long as the margin of victory is high enough for Trump, he should be okay. I just hope he stays alive until then.
what a time to be alive. Comments like that, spot the lie. It's all accurate in there, I think.
Wartime, 1,000 sats. Tax, D's nuts. Okay. Lightning Mick, 2,100 sats. Now, keep in mind his name on this. It says Lightning Mick. And he says, I'm not an on. My username shows when I'm commenting. Mickles. So it's either Mickles or Lightning Mick. Either way, thanks for the 2,100 sats. He says, OTech. Guess they're not taking over all the jobs just yet. Keep it up, boys. Any recommendations for Android Noster client? Primal doesn't allow Canada for wallet activations, and Amethyst doesn't load. Cheers.
Thomas would be the natural other one, right? Is that Android or iPhone? It's iPhone for sure. I don't know if it's Android too.
I don't know if it's on Android. I use Amethyst and it works well. And in terms of Primal not allowing for Canada, dude, don't you have a VPN? You could just simply get around that. And so for me, Amethyst works
as long as you're not in Brazil, you can do that.
I am right now in Brazil, according to my VPN, at least my phone. I've switched there. But Amethyst, I'm wondering why it doesn't load. There's a guy named Victor on Noster. He's the guy that administers that. He's the creator of it. So maybe you want to reach out to him if you have any problems, and he'll be able to answer your questions. So you could use the Primal web app. So obviously you need some way to activate it. So use the Primal web app. That's going to be your gateway into Noster, and from there you could ask him and see what you could do. I like Amethyst. It works great. It's kind of like a Twitter clone. So if you like using Twitter app, you'll like using Amethyst. Not to say Primal isn't bad. Primal is really good too.
They're both good. I like them both. I'm surprised actually at how high quality the apps were. I think was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we were kind of talking about it on the air, maybe after the show too. I just visited Noster in the 2 apps. They've come a long way. I've kept them on my phone and kept updating them over the last year or so, and they've come a long way since the last time I really tried to use it. So I do owe it to the community to try and spend some time there, I think.
It's grown a lot, especially in the past week and change, 2 weeks.
Because of the Twitter stuff?
Yeah, so many people have migrated over to Noster and got their feet wet, and a lot of people seem to be happy with what's going on there. Look, you could post whatever you want, and there's going to be no repercussions. Just people will simply unfollow you, and that could be it. But there's no way to be banned from it. It's a decentralized system, so there's a lot of pros. The cons, though, there are quite a few. There is no algorithm if you like to have an algorithm feed you stuff. It's simply just a timeline, and you're listening to all the people you follow and the conversations they have. That's it. And so if something's gaining traction, it's getting a lot of likes, it's not going to end up on your feed unless it is something one of your followers did something. They engage with that somehow, then it will show up in your feed. So that's
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We should all
it's good and bad.
We should all try and get used to it in some respects, right? Yeah.
That's it for the housekeeping. That's it for, at least I think. Certainly that's it for the boost, Joey.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just note that next week on Tuesday night, our guest is the one and only Mike Campbell of Money Talks fame. You've heard him on this show. This will be his 3rd appearance. I've been on Money Talks, I think, 4 times at this point. Mike is one of my favorite people. He's a guy who's longer in the tooth than Len and I, has seen a lot, has done money management, has done investing, has seen the ups and downs of the market and the ups and downs in the sanity of the public. And, if you don't listen to Money Talks, I'll just note that a show that has been traditionally about investing and economics is still heavily themed like that, but he's really taken the gloves off in a lot of ways in terms of what he's afraid of as Canada, I think, culturally shifts towards something that's a little more volatile than any of us are used to or ready for. So I would recommend listening to that. And I really hope you guys will come on Tuesday night. He's very, very good. And we share a lot of the same concerns. So I'm looking forward to talking to Mike, as I always do.
Well, for people that are tuning in and want to hear some Bitcoin related stuff, it's not going to happen this week because you know what? you may want to hear
Len sent me a message Friday night at 8:30, and he said, "We're not doing Bitcoin this week. We're going full clown world. There's too much content. We have no choice."
It's full. So like the Simply Bitcoin stuff being reinstated. If you want to hear our comments on that, I'm not going to provide any. Joey, if you wanted to go right ahead.
Congratulations. Good to see him back.
Good. Okay, I'm good with that. OpenSea's getting the Wells notice. Fuck them. And yeah. Binance seizing Palestinians' assets. That's
FTX redistributions coming in November, it looks like, as well, announced today. So there you go. That's the Bitcoin news. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to stay for the notables, go ahead. If you don't,
there's gonna be a ton. So yeah, we're gonna go long. I think. I don't know. No, we'll still stick to this usual time. But starting off, Joey, X supposedly went dark in Brazil, and we kind of hinted at that just a little while ago. My phone is in Brazil, if you look at where it's the packets are coming out of. So this follows this whole ordeal with X in Brazil follows a Supreme Court order which banned the platform in Brazil. So this applies to not just applications on your phone, the Twitter application or X application, but also web-based for people that also like to use web-based X wave. I use it. I prefer that than over my app, to be perfectly honest. But either way, that's also banned as well in Brazil. And from what I've been reading, people are reportedly feeling disconnected as a result of this order because they're not able to engage people that they were engaging in the past, communicating. So they could be all over the globe. And with this now in effect, they lost the effectively how to communicate with them. So they're feeling disconnected, and I can understand that being the case. But it also goes to show you how powerful this platform can be, because you'd have a lot of people that are reliant on it. Brazil is a large population, and Brazil is a large user of X. And now with this recent move, they're no longer going to be reliant. So they're going to have to somehow get their information elsewhere, just the crowdsourced information elsewhere. What is left? What options they have? Nostr being one. I would suggest maybe this might be an influx of Nostr people coming in from Brazil. But either way, this Supreme Court ruling comes down because Musk removed his legal representative. That's the whole thing. Now, if you look at it from this vantage point, it kind of makes sense, because according to the Associated Press, now before I'm going to talk about the order itself, the judge apparently had threatened the legal representation with arrest. Yeah. This is according to the Associated Press. I have no way to verify this, is what I'm reading. So with no legal representation, this case effectively was canceled, or at least put on hold. So according to the Supreme Court's press office, foreign companies like X, they have to have legal representation to operate in the country. So now with him pulling the plug on that, they no longer have that legal representation as such. Now they're going to be saying you can't operate in Brazil. So looking at through that lens, kind of makes sense. But remember what happened in Brazil. They had a recent election not too long ago. A lot of questions to do with the not legality, but how well it was done. And I don't want to go too much into that, but people could certainly look into that a little bit more. But either way, according to CBS, people who try to connect to X right now through a VPN, so trying to bypass this ban, they could face a fine of up to around $8,900 US per day. That's a significant amount of money to be fined. I'm not certain how they're going to go around this. And
so
if they're going to
tell you, I'll hop in here. They backtracked on that.
Okay.
A few hours ago, because as you're mentioning, it's hard to enforce mass disobedience means that there's just not enough resources to enforce these things. And if there's not enough resources to enforce, you can't enforce them. So they backed off on that portion of the thing, as well as the VPN portion. You're allowed to use VPN and there's no fine now, but they still have Twitter, quote unquote, banned, whatever that means.
So people of means and have the knowledge, they're just able to use a VPN. It kind of seems strange, so to speak. So they're giving some people the opportunity to get around it, but the majority of people that don't use a VPN and probably don't have the funds to pay for VPN every month, they're banned from it. It kind of seems strange. Either way, this shutting down of X is not unprecedented, Joey, because from what I gathered, WhatsApp had been shut down in Brazil few times in 2015 and 2016, because At that time, they did not comply with police to give user data. So this is not the first time this kind of stuff has happened. So it goes to show you what is going on here. It's a struggle for power, control, maybe something else, but it's shining a light onto something though. When you're dealing with a centralized entity, which is X, it could, at least somebody could put an order to ban it. And maybe it might have some implications, but for something that's decentralized, like Nostr, it's impossible to ban. So this, more than anything, shows that a decentralized service is the one that is going to win in the long run.
I actually don't think Nostr is impossible to ban. I think they'll go after app developers pretty quickly if they ever had to. Though that's it doesn't mean to be easy, and obviously anyone can develop an app, but I think they go after app developers and pull from the app store and stuff like that. It's doable because even if the service is the wrong word, even if the protocol is decentralized, the access points are not, at least not for the time being. As far as the Brazil thing, yeah, look, I mean, we've talked about this so many times, Len, that in times where your government is weak, in times where your ideas are so good that they have to be forced on people by law and by threat of violence, and in times where information that's true is dangerous to the established order, you have no choice but to ban these sorts of vehicles, these channels that are open to people, right? Twitter has become truly the enemy of so many governments. I won't name them, but you can imagine that not all of them are in the second and third world. There are some first world governments that are having a hell of a time with Twitter, over the last month or two, and will have even more of a hell of a time with Twitter as they near election season in the States and here and other places as well. To me, what I think is that what I think you're going to see now, in Brazil or in other places is basically that anyone who is making, hay on Twitter by saying things like, maybe this election wasn't fair, right? Or maybe we should protest X, Y, or Z. Or maybe we should be concerned about what's going on in schools. Or maybe we should be concerned about what's going on in our neighborhoods. Or, in Canada, the sentiment toward immigration has shifted basically 180, a hard 180 in the last 12 weeks, it feels like, in the general public. Like, it happened fast. It's my view that Twitter contributes to all those things at a rate that no government or state actor is prepared for or was prepared for. And honestly, Len, whether they agree or disagree, they'd rather not have it happen that fast. They'd rather not have it happen that way. And I think that Twitter is going to put a target on their back. I want to mention John in the chat. They can't force uninstall from phones or computers. He's talking about the Nostr apps. Yes, they absolutely can. In fact, you have to opt out of that on iPhones. You probably have to opt out of it on Android too. They certainly can pull apps down from the App Store, and ISPs can certainly limit you connecting to certain things. So
but once it's installed, can they? I'm not familiar with iPhone. I'm less.
Yeah, they can pull it from your phone. There was
really.
Yeah, there's actually a tutorial on this a week ago, around the time this started happening. Just because people were saying some of the same stuff, that this stuff can't be uninstalled. It can. You have to make sure that you're protected against it on your own. But I mean, at the end of the day, you flipping a switch ultimately is not going to stop Apple from taking something off your phone. You have to realize that if things get dire, that they will do what it takes to get that app off your phone. I
just want to say really quickly.
Yeah.
Options, Graphene OS. You don't have this.
There's other options. Yeah. 100%.
There's a rudimentary app store that's built into the Graphene OS. But from that, you can get the F-Droid, and then it's just simply APKs at that point.
Yeah, I don't know about Android force uninstalling, but Apple for sure can do it. Anyway, this idea that Brazil is the canary in the coal mine, I think is true. But they're not the only one right now. We talked about Starmer a couple of weeks ago, Britain having trouble with these riots and people posting pictures of the riots and talking about the, racial makeup, religious makeup of certain raucous groups. You can say that it's contributing to further disorder. I'm not saying that it's not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's not untrue to post a video, right? It's maybe inflammatory, but inflammatory sometimes still needs to be shared. And if you look, Len, at stuff like the community notes, how many politicians would want that community note thing scrubbed probably so badly? Like every politician basically in the Western world gets absolutely nuked in the community notes on every post, whether it's about inflation, whether it's about jobs, whether it's about immigration, whether it's about currency value, whether it's about interest rates, whatever. They get nuked. In Canada, it's especially bad. I don't know about the American politicians. Harris and Walz do get pretty toasted on their community notes as well. And I have seen Trump get toasted on his recent tweets too. So it's not just one side of the aisle doing it to the other. It's both. And I think that that's important. These people need to be held to account. And Brazil, Len, they want total control, man. And the whole point of these services is to let people think and speak freely and hear other views and opinions and share their own views and opinions. And people can share things that are not scrubbed and polished and, CNN down from 48 minutes to 19 minutes, to cite a recent example before they hit the web. People don't want that anymore. And they don't want it because they know that the media lies. They know that governments, twist the truth and try to make things sound better and look better than they are. But people can see, right? And, for all the prophetic commentary in 1984, what Orwell missed is that social media would come along and a guy who just wanted to have the Babylon Bee reinstated would just buy the thing and let people run wild. And I think a lot of people, not just Orwell, missed that possibility, and they're paying for it now, big time.
Elon Musk, he has to have a target on his back.
It's a huge move. Like him buying Twitter, Len. I think we talked about this on the air. We may have talked about it off the air.
We talked about it
on Access of Easy.
So it could have been on one or the other. Yes.
Yeah. Right. About how different would things look if Jack Dorsey still owned Twitter? How different would all this look? All of it. The Trump assassination attempt, the Biden coup, the Kamala different accent, for every flavor of hot sauce in her fridge. She's got a different fucking accent talking to these groups of people, depending on what race and state she's talking to. She sounds different. Like Twitter points all that stuff out thanks to the hive mind. But man, there was a time not long ago when Jack owned that place and it was a fucking gong show, man. You couldn't say anything. You got banned for talking about certain things that were, true. They were true. COVID was a great example. COVID, just unbelievable. But some people still think it's detrimental to have that level of, freedom of thought. I personally don't. I don't think you do either. I think many Bitcoiners have that same view, that more freedom of thought, the battle for dominance of ideas has to happen out in the open. There's a lot of people who don't think that. And I think a lot of them are of that opinion. A lot of them have that view because they know that their ideas are just not that great. And there's not really any other way to put it.
When you're talking about people getting lambasted on Twitter,
yeah.
It's funny. Does that still apply? Do they still get community notes?
Yeah.
When they put on a post that has they limit the replies, is that still possible?
Still get noted. Yeah.
Okay. Because I noticed a lot of people are doing that and they're limiting the amount, talking about elected officials, they're doing that. So limiting who can write replies. And come on, that's kind of BS in a way. This is kind of, the court of public opinion, and you're limiting some people from giving commentary. Sure, there'll be a lot of negative commentary
because they'll get nuked because they're spinning a yarn, right? And it's always the same. And then thank God people are kind of waking up to how dumb these criticisms are. Like, oh, it's far right, it's racist, it's misogynist. No, it's not. The comments are very rarely anything of that nature on political advertising or like election related stuff. They're almost always based in fact. They source articles. Community notes is an interesting thing, right? Like I have a notes, like my account is notes enabled. So I can go to notes before they're public and rate them. And they're always pretty good. Like they have all the sources. There's stuff in there that is not that great sometimes, but the stuff that wins out is rock solid. And people don't like that because, like I said, politics is a dirty game, and I'm not blaming politicians for playing it this way. It's always been played this way, but now they're in a position where truly they are fighting the last war, and it's starting to show, right? They look weak when they go to social media because they're just not cut out for that. The comm style just does not fit that ecosystem anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, the California Bitcoiner podcast is now in session.
Perfect.
You guys gotta talk about California. The NBC, this is an article from them, and it says that Allstate gets okay to raise California home insurance rates by average of 34%. right? So the gist of what is happening is that Allstate customers, so those homeowners that are insuring with Allstate, they're going to see a huge increase moving forward. And if you think that shopping around may be the answer, State Farm is also asking California to approve a 30% hike for homeowners as well. So it looks like there's going to be a bunch of insurance providers that are going to be hiking up rates for home owners. So either people are going to have to do something. We'll talk about that in a second. Either way, NBC article did not explain why the increase is coming. I had to do some digging here. So Michael Solar, this is the deputy insurance commissioner in California. And I'm going to quote him. He says, California's insurance rates on average are lower than many states, including large states like Florida and Texas. He said that we're seeing the impact of disasters, not just wildfires, but winter storms.
Oh my God.
Seeing the impact of climate change all across the nation. We're not alone. So, yeah.
Couldn't possibly be that there's roving gangs of drug addicted criminals.
Jesus. And wildfires, some can be naturally occurring, like this, or some could be done by an individual, or it could also be poor management.
Lack of management.
Of brush. And so like there's a whole bunch of things. Be perfectly honest, a lot of this is way beyond my pay grade, but to simply just pinpoint one single thing as the reason why. Another thing to consider too, there is an inflation that has to be considered here.
That's a big one.
We hear about 2%, whatever the last reported number was for July. There is a real number, and everybody's feeling it. Compare your grocery bill this year versus 2, 3, 4 years ago, and you'll see that is the real cost of inflation. So with now this being, instituted and this sword dangling above the homeowners' heads in California, they have to make a decision. Either go with insurance, risk it, maybe sell, become renters, sell and leave California.
Is it even legal to? I don't think you can actually, like, libertarians have a sort of a two-pronged beef with the insurance companies, right? One is that there's a pretty significant like monopoly or like oligopoly power. They fix prices basically. But the other is that the government forces you to engage with a private entity for vehicle and home insurance. I don't even think you can go without. You have to pay it.
In the States, you don't have to have vehicle insurance. I know for some states, maybe some of them they do.
Okay.
I've often watched cops and people don't have insurance, and they don't.
That's not the right sample group, though.
No, but they don't arrest them for. So that's based on what I'm like. I
didn't know you were a big cops guy.
I love watching that. It's so much fun. But to be honest, I don't have TV, so whatever I have with limited, I just choose to watch that. Either way, so there may be. I think things are different in the States than they are here. I could be wrong, especially with the home ownership. But for car, you don't have to. I think you're just running the risk. Over here, I know you have to.
How funny is it that these guys basically just have like a Wheel of Fortune wheel that has a million different slices on it, but there's only two things that are two possible outcomes. One is Russia, one is climate change. And so like they just spin that wheel for everything that happens, right? And now I think Kamala is going to try and add price gouging to it. So maybe there'll be a third outcome possible, but maybe a fourth, like far right extremism they'll throw on there. No matter what they do, it's always one of those four things. Whatever the cause is always one of those four things: climate change, far right extremists, Russia, or price gouging. It's an easy gig, man. If you can just point to these things, and the party is like, the people who vote for you are like, hell yeah, it is Russia that's causing the forest fires or whatever. Like, okay,
those motherfuckers out there.
Oh man,
you ever hear of a place called Shake Shack?
Yeah, of course.
I haven't. Not before reading this article. It's a burger joint, from what I understand.
Yeah,
in the States. So they're shutting down 6 locations in the state of California. And it's not due to the home insurance, because these are commercial businesses. But the New York Post believes that this might be due to a wage increase for restaurant workers. Did you know that restaurant workers in the state of California now earn a minimum of $20 US per hour?
We talked about this like 2 months ago. And the funny thing in the story was that it excluded bakery workers.
That's right.
Biggest contributor on the restaurant side is like Panera Bread or something.
Before this, it was $16 an hour. So it was pretty high before, but now it's even higher. So $20 per hour working at, say, McDonald's, that's not a bad gig after all. But so Shake Shack, look, they're shutting down. They're saying these places are underperforming, but I think this potentially might have something to do with it. Dishing out $20 per hour per employee it's making it more difficult to make ends meet. So whatever, maybe California will set up their own state-run Shake Shack alternative. We'll see what happens. Chicago seems to be kind of doing these things.
Isn't it just the crime though? Like I know here in Hamilton, there's like McDonald's and stuff that I used to go to when I was a kid. You know, I went there for McFlurries or for burgers with the boys, like late night stuff, the kind of stuff you do in high school, you know, like you're out with your buddies and you want to get a burger at 9:00 because you don't have any problems with heartburn or indigestion or staying up too late. And so you go get a burger at McDonald's and a huge fountain pop and sit in the McDonald's table area there, the eating area, and just chop it up with the boys there, you know, talk about what you learned as far as the women in your life or sports or whatever, right? All the stuff that coming of age really should be happens in a fast food restaurant sometimes. And those things are going away now because even in a place like Hamilton, they're closing those seating areas. Why? Because the people that come in there are just undesirable people. They're loud, they're rude, they're on stuff, they're causing trouble, they're a net negative for the business, even if they're patrons. And by the way, the big problem often is that they refuse to patronize the business, but just want to sit and hang out, you know, or one person will buy stuff and 10 people will come in with them. This is not, you know, you're losing on this kind of stuff. And Shake Shack is not a place where you get Uber Eats. You know, Shake Shack is not a place where you order and then go pick up. You go there and sit, or you go and grab and go a little bit, but you have to actually go to the business. And even if the business is doing okay, the minimum wage thing is a big hit for sure. But the other big hit, I would say, is that people just don't want to be around the people that hang out outside these places or even inside these places. You've seen the pictures of San Francisco in California. You've seen the other cities in California, the pictures, the videos. We've talked about it so many times. Would you leave your house to get a 6 out of 10 hamburger if it meant you had to go buy a drug den?
It depends what comes along with it. If I got a syringe, do I get that as well? I don't know.
I don't know. Good question. But it's like so obvious, right? I think it's so obvious that you're going to have all these problems because society is just coming apart at the seams in some of these places.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've been saying it for a long time, and people would have said that we were, you know, inappropriately doing so a year ago. But now I think everyone sees it. Drugs are causing tons of problems, among other things. And, you know, these businesses are the ones that are going to suffer first. And there's, you know, for all these people who claim trickle down economics don't work, they're going to find out fucking fast how important trickle down economics is when all the businesses in the area close.
So another story from California from ABC News. It says California bill would allow undocumented immigrants paying taxes to get home loans. So this is Assembly Bill 1840. It's been approved by lawmakers, and right now it's headed to the desk of Gavin Newsom for approval.
Good.
And as per the ABC article, those that apply to get a loan under the California Dream for All program won't be denied based on immigration status. So the program helps out first-time home buyers by allowing them to pay back the interest by not paying back the interest portion of the mortgage.
Incredible.
So only the original loan is paid back plus 20% for home appreciation. So it's going to be up to $150,000 in total plus closing costs. It's possible now people without legal status to use this program. That's if Gavin Newsom approves it. It's still not yet.
He's going to.
The law.
He's going
so
to.
I don't know what can go wrong from all this. You know, home prices in California are already very high. Now we're probably going to have a whole bunch of homes for sale because they can't afford the homeowner insurance. And now you're going to be asking these people, these undocumented people, to buy these homes, and who's paying it for? The collective is going to be paying for the loan.
How
itself.
pissed would you be if you were someone who like went through a 12-month period where you had a house but lost your job, couldn't make your rent, were evicted, you're on the street, drugs are all around you all the time, you're trying to hang on, food banks don't have enough food for you, there's no space in shelters, but illegals are coming over and grabbing a quick interest-free loan for a house? How pissed would you be? Like, this is what I'm talking about when I say like societal fabric is coming apart. Like, this is why. FYI, this is why. It's not a mystery, you know, like everyone should be mad about this.
Now, the overall United States, what's the population? We'll say 300 million. It could be
probably closer to 350, right? I think 350.
Okay.
Yeah.
and I don't know what the population is in California, but I think it's the most populated state in the U.S. Take a guess. How many undocumented people live in California? If you just were to come to
Can you give me the total population?
Of the state?
California, yeah.
I don't. I'd have to pull it up. Let me see. Population California.
Yeah, give me that number and then I'll guess.
39 million as of 2002.
5 million illegal.
So the last numbers I have were from 2021, and it was
Yeah.
estimated 1.85 million. That's
Okay,
the
so
most in as of any state in the United States.
21.
That number,
So
yes. So 3
yeah.
years later, that number could easily be over 2 million.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
3 million, probably not. That's my guess. I could be wrong. So think about now you have these people here potentially able to take advantage of this program. The one thing that they're saying though is that you have to be a taxpayer. So it's people that are undocumented, but they're collecting.
How is that possible?
They have a job somehow and they're paying taxes, income tax, whatever the fuck they're paying. They're paying some sort of taxes. Okay. So there is some semblance of understanding why it is they want to do that, because at least they're paying into a system that they could take advantage of. But like you said, think of all the people there that have been doing this for a long period of time and they're now dealing with drugs and losing their job because of shutdowns and shit like that. And now they're watching somebody else also have the same type of advantage you have. And they just Johnny come lately. So
it's absolutely unbelievable. It is unbelievable how like blatantly political this is, you know?
Yeah.
What is the name of that theory where like if you really wanted to upset a governable order, you would do it by like runaway inflation, tons of immigration, Cloward Piven or something like that?
Not even, no clue.
Look it up. Look it up. Someone will tell me in the chat. Cloward Piven, I'm pretty sure it's called. Where like if you this is indistinguishable from basically like a intentional demolition of a governable order because it's no longer favorable to the governing, group. I think this is nuts, Len, but whatever. We're not even scratching the surface of how notable some of these things will be.
Oh, no, let's keep going.
I know.
Staying with California, Jamul, California. This is about 5 to 10 miles east of San Diego. And well, an email went out by the Jamul Dulzura Union School District because it's indicating that some buses have been disrupted by migrants that were attempting to board them. So school started over there, apparently.
This is the Canadian demonetized podcast. We are just rolling downhill here into all
this is a Fox
most
News
controversial topic.
So apparently, migrants attempted to board buses along the District A and District B school bus routes. And in one of the instances, 3 migrants were in the middle of the highway blocking the road, and they tried to stop the bus, but apparently the bus had to avoid to get around them. So they did that. But in another one on District B, from what I understand, a group of 20 or more migrants were trying to mingle in with students.
Oh boy.
And at a bus stop, and parents had to help the bus driver make sure that the students were safe, and only the students boarded.
That is
the
nuts.
bus. I guess they need some education. That's why they're trying to get on the bus to go to school. That's what I'm guessing. I don't know, but you know what? This is a problem that's going on just east of San Diego, right? It's California. It's
you say that kind of stuff with a straight face.
What can I say?
What do you think? They're trying to get some reading, writing, and arithmetic taught to the tune of a hickory stick. I fucking doubt it. I doubt it.
I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
They get enough benefits. When you say we just talked about 120K or whatever that was.
Let's give a little bit more.
Oh God. It's so hard. Don't get me wrong. Okay. I know on this show, oftentimes I won't speak for Len, but I know that I say things that can be abrasive or unpopular that will make people not want to talk to you at a barbecue. Okay. I get that. But what other position can a sort of thinking person take on this issue? What is the other position? You have these kids who are on a school bus, and you have a bunch of people who are undocumented, right? To use the kind term, who are, at the very least desperate, but in the worst case, dangerous. You don't want to have a vulnerable population with that kind of person. I don't care what their situation is otherwise. This is why you have immigration systems that are established and monitored and these types of things. You can't just have people running around on roads trying to get on buses with kids. if this happened in your neighborhood, the police would be called. But because they came from another country illegally, we have to, parse our words. Like I have a hard time with that, honestly. I really do. I mean, you're a father. I'm about to be a father, knock on wood. You wouldn't you have a problem with this if this was happening on your kid's bus?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it's a migrant or anybody else.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It just doesn't matter. But for some reason, we can't talk about this, right? You're not allowed to speak. You speak pointedly about these sorts of things. Well, we should speak pointedly about them because they're important. And if your kid was on that bus, you would feel pointedly about it too, I think. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
The Colorado Bitcoiners podcast is now in session. That's on the CBP. So reports are floating around that migrants originating from Venezuela, they have taken over an apartment complex.
This is a great story. This is like a Grand Theft Auto side quest or something. I can't believe this shit.
But there's no finality to it. It's just an ongoing thing. You're not there to kill them or at least, rub them out one way or another. Either way, Aurora, Colorado. That's where this is taking place. It's a apartment complex, and migrants from Venezuela have taken it over. Homeland Security apparently has confirmed from the video that's floating around that the folks are part of Venezuelan gangs. So they're gang members from Venezuela. Yep. And in fact, there was a shootout in a parking lot not too long ago. So there's been some activity since July. And I'm just shocked that nothing has been done since then. It's been like a month or so, month and change or so that this has been going on. And still this is ongoing. But one thing I just want to point out is, I don't know if there's any validity to this, but Trump has been saying a long time that countries have been emptying up prisons and sending them to United States. And they're, based on this, who knows? There may be some truth to that. But if Homeland Security is indeed saying that they're the part of a Venezuelan gang, how did they get in?
The mayor was on Fox, I think, last week, Thursday or Friday, and basically confirmed that, these guys did basically take over 2 apartment buildings or hotels or something.
How come the army wasn't called in?
That's what I'm saying. What do you mean they took over? Don't you have cops in town?
Well, there comes a point where cops can't handle it.
Yeah, but can we drone strike or something? What
right,
are we talking
water,
about?
just something escalate it.
Exactly.
That's why it's been going on for a month and change. If it's one day, okay. I mean, I don't want to justify one day. One day is too long. But you're talking weeks and weeks.
And to your point, they're just collecting rent from people. Basically, they just took over the revenue stream. It's like a scene out of that show, Sons of Anarchy or something, where they just are running a town. The videos from the security cameras in the buildings are pretty insane. You seen them? The guys running around there. And by the way, they look young.
It's Migrants, Sons of Anarchy.
That's sorry, I forgot. Yeah, sorry about that. But it's crazy. These guys are just running basically a property management business now. I mean, this is very unofficial, of course, but it's they're just going door to door with machine guns asking for cash. I guess that's the story. That's what the mayor seems to say. And he's yeah, we're trying to figure out. And he's the reason we don't engage, actually, now that you mentioned that, the reason we don't tell our police officers to engage is because the gang has orders to freely shoot at police officers. So these guys
who has the power here?
Oh, Len, you know who's got the power.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you didn't DEI your police force over the last few years, because you're really going to pay for that now. Because these guys, they don't give a shit. When they hire gangs, they got guys who can shoot and guys who are willing to die for the cause. It's crazy, man. I hope it turns out okay. I would hate to live in a place like that, but not good. It's not a good situation up there in Aurora, Colorado. And some people on Twitter going, yeah, it's not real. This isn't happening. Buddy, the mayor was just on TV. He said it was going on. But what does the mayor have to gain by saying he's lost control of a quadrant of his city? Nothing. The answer is nothing. So yeah, it's a serious problem. How to your earlier question, they should send the military, should they not? What is the threshold for that? It's got to be close to this, no?
Everybody in that building that's a resident, get the fuck out, because they're gonna go in, or maybe send in the Secret Service and have the Secret Service protect the building.
Listen, we saw the Secret Service already a couple of weeks back. I don't think the Secret Service.
Well, if you give them orders to protect the building itself, you know what's going to happen.
The building will be destroyed.
Perfect.
Interesting. Win. Oh yeah, reverse jinx. Okay.
Australia, buddy. Let's go to Australia. This is a doozy of a story.
Rory on the Bobby.
Amon. I Hope I pronounce. Actually, I don't give a fuck if I pronounce this guy's last name correctly. He stepped down as a member of parliament this past week. He was a member of parliament in Australia. And according to ABC News on Australia, this dude was charged with 10 child sex offenses. 10. And from what I could tell, and
Come on, man.
It gets even more interesting, Joey. And he's a former member of parliament. From what I could tell, and I can't verify if this is accurate, since this is all alleged, charges include 5 counts of having sexual intercourse with a child between the ages of 10 and 14.
Hang them.
And allegedly, these crimes occurred in 2017. So it's now been, 7 years since this has taken place. Man. And these allegations on their own are very bad. Obviously, you can't. But last year in May of 2023, this guy was appointed the Shadow Assistant Minister for Youth, Housing, and Planning and Public Services.
Talk about government bloat. Do we need shadow assistant ministers of anything? And they didn't even vet this guy. No one thought to look in this guy's closet. Oh my God.
It's a youth minister, and he's doing this kind of. This is clown world to the.
It's notable. It's notable. It's very notable.
No. So when I read shit and all the previous stories, there's no way we could talk about fucking Bitcoin. Not after seeing all this was going. And there's still so much more to talk about. This would be a 10-hour show if we talked about Bitcoin. So yeah, that's.
Listen, this is the word. This is as bad as it gets. I shouldn't joke about kids, but there's really no excuse for allowing this to happen. Anyone who's ever ran for public office would probably tell you that the sort of vetting and oppo research and red team stuff that goes on whenever anyone takes an elected office is very significant. There's almost no skeleton that will remain unturned or unearthed or in your closet, as the saying goes. How did this happen? How could this be possible for, you said 2017?
2017, allegedly.
7 years, almost 8 years, right? Yeah, allegedly. We should be clear about that. But pretty serious allegation for it not to be substantiated. And I think you mentioned there was half dozen of them, right? So yeah, not very good. Not very good. I mean, what else can you say? I don't want to give this guy more airtime, but yeah, not great.
Zuck. We can talk about Zuck.
Zuckerberg.
So he came out swinging this past week about the White House because apparently they were putting pressure. The White House was putting pressure on his Facebook team or Meta team for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and they expressed a lot of frustration with their teams, and he says they didn't disagree. So yeah, this is kind of an interesting information that he's been
that's one way to put it. Yeah,
again, there's nothing you could talk about this because we talked.
Okay, what you asked on the other show, Access of Easy, okay, which you guys should all be fucking subscribing to because it's a good fucking show. We spent a lot of time preparing for that show, arguably more time preparing for that show than this show, actually. But the thing that you asked me on that show was what changed for Zuckerberg between then and now that he made this admission, right? And what did I say? I'll tell you exactly what changed. He started working out. And now he's a little bit more conservative than he was a year ago. He's going to get bigger and stronger. He's going to go more conservative. He's going to start telling all these other people to get lost, kick rocks, and beat it every time they put pressure on him to do something. He'll say it's policy. He'll say they're adjusting. He'll say this is what our users need, this level of transparency. But I will tell you that what's actually happening is he's lifting weights. This is it, okay? How many times you got to see in the New Yorker, the New York Times, CBC, CTV, you name it, all these publications talking about how the alt-right starts in the weight room. It sure does. It sure does. Conservatives are stronger than I think the other parties. And you see this oftentimes. I've made mention of this more than once, but there's a great 4chan post about how people who don't lift weights, who are weak mentally or physically, filter their ideas, their opinions through this idea of protection and safety. Do enough other people have this opinion that I'll be safe? They don't think about things about whether or not they're objectively true. And Zuckerberg was in
numbers. That's the
sort
mentality.
of, yeah, exactly. And so Zuckerberg was in this other camp before, but he's in our camp now. And not a surprise. When you become physically fit, you start thinking a little more clearly. This is why I always say half jokingly, maybe less than half jokingly these days, If you can't squat 225, we got to talk about whether or not you should be voting. We got to talk about it. I want to see what we got to put Smith machines. We got to put power racks at every electoral, like every ballot station. And you got to just we got to rip one rep for the
there's more to it. I mean, you could change the oil if you want to change.
Sure.
That's another way. There's so many other things you could do. But you say is an R camp. Joey, I don't know, man.
Like, I think he is. I
don't belong in anybody, especially not his camp.
The conservative camp. The conservative camp will say.
I'm not a conservative though.
I am. I think he's leaning to the right now.
I don't want to be labeled. I am me.
Boomer's laughing in the chat because I almost said Smith machine there. I get shit on Twitter all the time. I didn't mean to say Smith machine, but that's what came out. Freudian slip.
Joey,
you know what a Smith machine is?
Mm-hmm.
Those guys give me a hard time for my Smith machine lifts.
Especially if you're doing it alone.
That's what I know. That's what I say too. And it's also good. It's also good if you want to push past a plateau weight. Like you said, if you're by yourself, Smith machine's pretty good to do that for.
Right.
But I mean,
you're not going to ask your 7-month pregnant wife to come.
No, you won't. It's funny. Like I think this is not a shot at Boomer, but it's funny. I bought like 2.5 pound plates maybe 2 years ago, something like that. And a lot of my friends are like, why do you need 2.5 pounds? Like blah, blah, blah. If you can't figure out why you need the Smith machine or 2.5 pound weights, it just tells me that you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Because you do need those little bits of weight at the top end of what you can handle to push just a little over the top, over and over again. And then before you know it, you can do a higher weight. That's how progressive overload works. But that's neither here nor there. And we can go on.
Joey, with that, that's it for the notable stories. We have Notable North coming up.
I love it.
Talk about there.
Let's get after it. Good to see you guys. If you're on video, audio, spaces, whatever, stay here. If you're not, then wait for tomorrow for the rest of the episode. Take care of yourselves.
Don't be a cock.
5701. Okay, let's keep rolling. What do you got?
All right. So in Canada, as of last week, a visitor is no longer able to apply for a work permit.
Whoops.
And a global news article lays it out. And the article mentions that concerns about abuse has caused the government to move forward and tighten up the rules. This whole thing, I'll be honest, I didn't even know it existed, that a visitor was able to apply for a work permit. I didn't realize that was a thing, but it was introduced back in August of 2020. It was a response to the pandemic. And why was it introduced then? Makes sense, is that people that were here in Canada as visitors and they couldn't have gone back because everything was shut down, they gave them an opportunity at least to earn some money and to sustain themselves rather than just becoming homeless or being a leech on their family or whatever. So that made sense, but it's now been 4 years plus that it's been in place. Originally, this whole ordeal was supposed to expire in February 28, 2025, but the government decided to accelerate it to August 28, 2024. So now that is no longer the case for visitors to apply for work permits in Canada. As for IRCC, that's Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, that's the department that oversees this, they say overall efforts to recalibrate the number of temporary residents in Canada and preserve the integrity of the immigration system was the reason why they went ahead and made this change. And the number of temporary foreign worker positions in Canada, and I thought it would be higher than this, but apparently has more than doubled since 2016.
Yeah.
I thought it would be much higher than that, but it's been 2x since 2016. This is according to ESDC. And the government is also doing a whole bunch of other measures too to try to mitigate the pressures that's being imposed by foreign workers. Starting September 26th, we talked about this last week or week before, that the government is going to start refusing applications for low-wage temporary foreign workers in regions that have unemployment rates of 6% or higher. And there's also, for employers, there's going to be a cap of 10% of employees coming from low-wage stream of the temporary foreign workers program, a reduction of the maximum duration of employment from 2 years to 1. So you can no longer get a 2-year work permit. It's going to be a 1-year thing. So meanwhile, they're also putting a cap on international students. That's going to take place in January, and it's expected to result in a 35% drop in enrollment compared to 2024. So like there are measures they're going ahead with reducing the amount of foreign workers. They see this is a issue,
It's a political
and
issue. They don't care
it
about anything else. It's a
absolutely
political issue.
is.
Yeah.
Absolutely is. And in fact, we'll talk about the results from this moving forward. But yeah, I'm not sure if you want to add any
Two
more flavor to
things.
this.
Yeah, two things. Vashi Kapelos, my media wife, my media crush. We're not married in the media, but she's been my favorite for a long time. Grilled Mark Miller in what probably he thought was going to be a quick 2 or 3 questions, and ended up being about 11 minutes of fire from her, and a lot of pointed commentary from her about how they either didn't care, didn't see, or ignored anyone who claimed this was going to be a problem. She also called him out for saying that a year ago they said anyone who mentioned this was racist and dismissed it. Good for her. You like to see that from the media. Interesting stat here. We talk a lot about LMIA jobs. We talk a lot about TFWs. Have you heard about the IMP program?
No.
In Canada, we have something called the International Mobility Program, and it's another way to get work permits. In 2020, we'll say 2010. In 2010, since that's what the tweet says, in 2010, we let in about 9,000 people from India into this program, and had just under 200,000 people total. In 2023, that number went to 355,000 Indians and more than 1.1 million total people in a year. That's separate, I think, from the temporary foreign worker program, and certainly separate from the student program. So there's a lot of card shuffling and shell games, I think, with these numbers, where the overflow is coming from, who is really the overflow, what countries are over contributing to the overflow, and how difficult is it going to be to really find all these people and put them back on planes or boats to their country of origin, now that we've seemingly decided this is the only way forward. I shouldn't say we've decided this, actually. The other thing I want to mention on that note is I am concerned that what I hear is actually not that we need to remove these people from the country once their foreign workers permits are done. What I actually hear is we need to make sure they're not foreign workers in the country. And what does that mean, Len? It means either they go home, or what's the alternative?
Well, they could stay here in one way, shape, or another.
They
Either
become
they may,
citizens. They become
well,
citizens, right?
eventually.
Yeah.
So
They
either they
get
maybe
put on
claim,
a pathway. Yeah.
yeah, either
So
claim asylum, or if they
yeah,
marry somebody here and get sponsored or something.
it's very unlikely that we will ever go back to pre-pandemic numbers in terms of, I guess, in terms of immigration or growth or whatever, because I think there's probably a fair chance that most of these people stay in the country. I should note that not all these people should go back. Some of these people are contributing at a pretty good clip to the economy, I'm sure, and are, upfront about their status and things of this nature. But when I see protests in Brampton, for example, from a bunch of international students who are in their mid 40s talking about how I have to fix my system and not send them back, sending you back is part of fixing the system, number one. And number two, the system is overloaded now because of the problems. And it's not a, a problem that's a personal problem with the people who are here. It's just that the people that are here are a symptom of these issues over the last few years, and we have to reconcile the issue somehow. The system has to be remedied. Part of that is potentially making sure that people go back home when their permits are finished, or when their studies are finished, or whatever. So that's interesting. The other thing I think maybe we should mention is that, again, like, this is an overtly and like very clearly political issue now. Everyone is talking about this. Every newspaper is publishing stories about immigration. The broader Canadian view of immigration, and maybe more importantly, and maybe more detrimentally, the view of immigrants, has completely shifted, fairly or unfairly. That's not good for the country. And the Bank of Canada put out that research a little while ago that we talked about on the show, where the number of immigrants who have jobs after 5 years or 10 years is pretty low. The age of immigrants coming over means they can't contribute meaningfully to things like CBP, healthcare, infrastructure through taxes and whatnot, but they are using those services. And of course, when you come over in numbers that great, all to the same, let's say 8 cities in the country, you overload all those systems: healthcare, education, roadways, sewage, plumbing, housing, you name it. And you're seeing the repercussions of that now. So yeah, this problem is for sure in need of an overhaul, a fix. But isn't the question then not one of, whether it needs the overhaul, but rather one of how are we going to execute the overhaul? Like, I don't care which party's in power. It's going to be so difficult to fix some of these problems now. It's the resources required, for example, to track and trace, not to use a term that'll give you PTSD, but track and trace people who are here illegally or will be here illegally at some point. But what's the plan? There's no plan for that. It's going to be damn near impossible to get that done. So something to keep an eye on as always, but I do not envy whoever winds up with that task, over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever.
We'll see what happens. I don't want to guess what. Let's talk about this as a piggyback to the previous story I just talked about. And I'm not sure if did you read this Toronto Star article about the investigation about temporary foreign worker program? They did an investigation into it. This is pretty damning stuff for the Toronto Star. They said that government officers were.
I did see this. The fast tracking, right?
Yeah. So government officers were told to skip fraud protection steps when vetting temporary foreign worker applications. This is according to the Toronto Star investigation. And beginning of January 2022, ESDC allegedly told people processing applications to apply quote unquote streamlined measures. And this was going to be for evaluating the legitimacy of applications for employers who want to hire temporary foreign workers. So there may have been potential misuse by fake employers to lure people here. Let's be honest, there may be some people that did this as a way to get into Canada, but there may be also people that came here thinking that there would be a job waiting for them. And when they came here, there's no job to be had. So they got duped. And now they spent all this time and money to uproot themselves to a different country. And here they are, and there's no fucking job. So this is all from this investigation. I have no way to confirm if this is true or not. But the Toronto Star, for them to come out with this, and it's a very damning investigation. I suspect that they must have put in a lot of time and effort into vetting everything to make sure everything was correct. And they came out with this. I suggest people read into this. It's very interesting stuff. I don't know if they have since ESDC has changed their stance and gone back to the old way of doing things where they vet things the old-fashioned way.
Who knows?
But I don't think it was mentioned in the article.
Don't forget, we just had a guy try to plan a mass casualty event on Canadian soil like a month ago. And the only reason we found him is because France turned us on to it. Like, we didn't vet this guy when he came in 5-6 years ago, under whatever program, asylum, employment, or otherwise, even though he was in an ISIS video from like the year before. So like it's not just about vetting to make sure people are like, culturally aligned, right? It's stuff like, will this person bomb Nathan Phillips Square during the Santa Claus parade? Yes or no? There's no question like that on the immigration form. You have to find out yourself. And if you're fast tracking, you don't find out.
Yes, they do. I mean, to come to Canada when you claim asylum, they do some background checks on you. They do what they can. Let's be honest. If you're coming from a war-torn country, so if you're accepting individuals from a country that is war-torn, there's not much information you could go, and you can't go to the local police and ask them, please give me that person's record. There is no police station to be had.
No,
you can't go to the
yeah.
So that's the thing. So when you're dealing with this, you're kind of, unfortunately, there may be stuff that slips through the cracks. And I'm not trying to justify this. It's just a reality of it. Just information is not easily available, freely available, and yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
comment section inflammatory at this moment. So
so I just try to, in terms of like that individual that came here, the alleged ISIS guy, I'm just trying to give some not justification, but reality of it. It's just it's impossible to do a thorough background check on everybody.
That's fair. So. I get frustrated because it seems to me more and more as we see more reporting and more digging and more investigating, this was avoidable, like these problems were avoidable. And I think people who talked about how we needed to avoid them were unfairly villainized, not just by the sort of powers that be, but by the government and by the newspapers and by their friends and by their families. And that wasn't a fair response, because now the admission is basically that, yeah, you were right 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and now we have to do something about it. But the situation is so dire that, again, there's going to be, I predict it'll either be an undershoot or a massive overshoot. But, the difficulty in getting something like this right, and like hitting the Goldilocks zone, it's, in the best of times, it's difficult. But now it's going to be almost impossible, and it sucks.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you saw this picture or a video that was floating around Twitter. It was in Kitchener, Ontario, and there was a new Longo's. It's a grocery store chain in Ontario and maybe Canada. They were hiring.
They have one
for
in
positions.
Hamilton. You never been to Longo's?
I've been to, yeah, I've been.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
So I just don't know if it's in the rest of Canada for people listening in here or watching. So new Longo's, they're hiring. Somebody took a picture or a video of this. 500 people lined up for these entry-level jobs, and you can imagine the.
I'm afraid to ask.
So
yeah.
I mean, you can fill in the blank, and so there you go. And this just we've talked about these stories over and over again. They're frequent, and every time something comes up, there's people, they need job, they need money, and it's always, they just line up and away you go. It's too bad.
Should people be boycotting anyone that hires TFWs or uses LMIAs at this point? Like,
there would be almost nowhere to go. I think
there's a few places to go. It'd be very difficult for sure, but like you could do the easy ones, like Tim Hortons, McDonald's, Fortino's, No Frills, Starbucks, Pizza, Subway, Pita Pit, all the sort of like, stock favorites. Just don't go.
Yeah, if it's franchised, you expect them to have
just don't go before. Anywhere you see it, just don't go. Except
for Tahini's, I would suggest go there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Ali uses TFWs, so I'll have to ask him. But I don't know what else to do at this point, right? What are we supposed to do?
I'm at a loss. I don't know. It's just
because you're not really allowed. You're still not really allowed to talk about it that much. You kind of are. You kind of aren't. People still have a hard time expressing their opinions about why this is a bad idea because they don't know that much about it. Hell, even you and me, like, we talk about this stuff pretty often. There's still gaps in my understanding for all this stuff. But at some point, like, you have to boycott these businesses. Unemployment for under 25s in Ontario was what, 14% over the summertime, right? It's too high. It's just plain old too high. And the reason it's too high is because temporary foreign workers and international students, that big time quotation marks around that second one, are taking jobs. And to hear the students talk about how any restriction on the hours they work will make living here very difficult, too fucking bad. The whole program was supposed to be centered around you proving you had the funds to study here without working. If you don't have the funds, go back, pick a cheaper school, whatever. But don't complain, man. There's, this whole they took our gerbs thing from South Park. Like, yeah, it's a bit of a meme, but you're kind of encroaching on that territory now, I think. And the common pushback is, well, Canadians don't want those jobs. They sure as shit do. I know enough young people that are having trouble finding decent jobs at an entry level these days, thanks to my time coaching, that I can tell you that I'm pretty sure Canadians would fill those jobs if they were given the opportunity. But the powers that be, and I'm not talking about the government here, I'm talking about, the Loblaws types, are so hell bent on wage suppression that they're just going to push and push and push to try and get as many TFWs, LMIAs, foreign students, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Metro in the chat saying they want to be paid a living wage. I think that's fair, man. I do think it's fair. Like we talk about all the time, inflation has gone crazy over the last 3 years. There's only one group of people pretending it hasn't, and that group of people happens to be aligned with the folks who want to suppress wages. Like, it's possible that Loblaws is not gouging you while also suppressing the wages, right? Like, they can be falsely accused on one hand and actually guilty of this other thing on the other hand. That's I think it's fair. And I am so worried for the next generation, because it's like the next generation had all kinds of problems before this, right? These guys are getting prescribed meds because they want to play Xbox instead of learning long division. They're constantly getting berated by TikTok algos and Instagram algos and screen time. And, it's dangerous to go outside now more than it was a year ago. There's open drugs, rampant addiction, rampant theft, rampant crime. Even here in Hamilton, there's a shootout near Lime Ridge Mall yesterday or 2 days ago, a shootout on the street. Kids have enough trouble without not being able to find work experience. When you add that to the pie, just to tie a bow on this, the pension and Social Security Ponzi here relies on those kids being able to support the population with decent paying jobs. And if you don't give them a chance to learn, then you're really setting that Ponzi up for failure more than it's already destined to that outcome anyway. And I just think it's so short-sighted, man. So short-sighted. But this is what politics yields all the time. And you're seeing this everywhere now. It's not just here. We talk about it here because we live here, but it's everywhere now. The States is mimicking policies that are so fucking bad over here, even though we have 10 years or 15 years of experience with shit like the first-time homebuyer supports and like proposals on new taxes for unrealized gains and higher capital capture tax. Like it's not like there's no evidence of these things working anywhere, and yet they're being tried. Why? Because they just need short-term. They need short-term gains at the ballots and the polls, whatever, right? And it's going to cost people big time. This is why, if you don't have Bitcoin, man, like I don't know what the fuck you're thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. I have no idea. You're all that other stuff is like it's TFSAs, RSPs, yeah, for now. But at some point, Len, like you say this all the time, right? Like you're playing a dangerous game investing in those vehicles still, You're really asking for trouble. And it used to be 20 years away.
In front of a
I know. It used to be 20 years away, and now it's like fucking 5.
It could be. I mean, yeah. I could be totally wrong, and it could be like.
I don't think you're wrong. No.
And yeah, now we talked about a number of stories, including a lot of the measures the government is trying to do to curb a lot of temporary foreign workers and even students. There was a recent poll that came out this past week. Not sure if you saw this, but the Liberals are experiencing a jump in all this. Surprise. At the expense of whom? The NDP.
Yeah.
So now the Liberals are clearly in second place. Before, the Bloc was kind of in there. Now they're pushed to third. The Liberals, not going to say that they're making a comeback here, but look, they have a year and change left before the next election. Who knows what's going to happen? The economy could change, could improve drastically. Rates are probably going to come down. There's going to be a whole bunch of things that are going to be done at the request of government. Some is just going to be naturally occurring just because the global economy does its thing. Mm-hmm. And who knows what's going to happen? There may be a little bit of a comeback here where they could push things into a point where the Conservatives may still win, but it would be a minority government. And then there's possibilities.
This should be everyone's base case. I would not. I said this on the Carrazza show last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. I would not bet against the Liberals in any election, whether they had the election now or in 11 months. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't bet against them.
Well, only 2 parties have ever governed in Canada. So you're either going to be talking, and I'm not. There may have been a PC party one time, but that thing just merged into what we have today.
Left or right. Yeah.
You only have the red and the blues. Yeah. That's the only 2 that govern in Canada. So if it's not going to be one, it's going to be the other. So yeah, I mean, the Liberals certainly have a chance.
Yeah,
history has proven that.
Yeah.
And this poll, I'm not saying this is trending. It's going to maintain this trend moving forward, but like if things continue where they are, and they can show that they're trying to get rid of some things that are impacting people negatively, people are gonna look at that positively and maybe say, you know what, let's keep him for another few months, few years.
Yeah.
And if he gets enough,
it's possible.
Could be a minority coalition.
Boomer's in the chat saying something that I want to address, that if Harris wins, the Liberals will win. If Trump wins, we get Pierre. I actually view it the opposite way. I think if Trump wins, it will be a bump for the Liberals. They've done, I think, a pretty good job equating Pierre with Trump among the normie crowd. I have some family who is completely wrapped up in mainstream media, legacy media nonsense, and views Trump and Pierre the same way. People will say things at family gatherings like, if Pierre wins, I'll lose my reproductive rights. Like, clearly not true. Clearly actually insane to say, but it's just what CBC says or CTV says. And so this is what they parrot, because in the States, what is the line? Trump will have a nationwide ban on abortion, even though the man has said at least 500 times in the last 3 months that he's not going to ban anything. The states can decide. And if you don't like the outcome there, you can move to another state. This is how it should be, probably. You're going to start seeing the same thing here in Canada, by the way, with the formerly untouchable program in healthcare. Provinces will start to experiment with different healthcare things. The Overton window on healthcare is shifting, as I mentioned on Twitter yesterday. I want to talk to someone on the show about that. But yeah, I think actually Trump will yield a Trudeau boost. And if Harris wins, I think you will actually see a Pierre boost over here. Sort of inverse of what you might expect, or what might be the American political outcome. I think people don't know. It's so bad to say this, but I think a lot of people just don't know what they're voting for, honestly. And so when people make fun of Harris for trying to run on vibes, I just am like, what else do you think most people vote on? They get to the ballot box, and I bet you that, some percentage of the population votes based on what they feel like that day, or some event that happened to them in the last 12 hours, which party they think can help them with something that affected them 12 hours ago. That's just how people are. I don't know. I think that's true. I think that's true. I don't know if it's a big population, Len, but even if it's 5%,
that's it. That's what it's going to get at. So
that's enough to cause a fucking problem.
In the US, of the people that vote, you'll have your 35 to 40% that is going to be hardcore one, and 35 to 40% is going to be
they're never moving.
The other.
Yeah, they're never moving. Yeah.
And it's just that middle, that, whatever is left, that's going to be enough.
The 9 swing states, right? Or 10 swing states. That's always the case. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So those are the people
made, by the way, that you want your population. I mean, there's two ways to look at this, right? That population is fickle and easily influenced, and so you don't want to be ruled by them. But the other side of that coin is that population is considerate and changes based on issues and based on the state of affairs, election cycle to election cycle. And so you do want to be governed by them, as opposed to these people who never leave their camps. Now, I've made the case before that I think the left has a much stronger and more consistent base, thanks to the handout policies, than the right does. But I mean, we'll see. All this stuff is it's fluid, to say the least, and it's more polarizing than ever before. The difference between this election and 2020 and 2016 is that a lot of people were afraid to say certain things because they were afraid of the repercussions socially, professionally, whatever. Now I think that ship has basically sailed in the US. And I think by the time the election comes here, it will have sailed in Canada as well. And so that's the sort of exciting thing, is that people will be mask off and gloves off during election seasons in a way they haven't been in about a decade.
Did you see this video for crack pipes? You could get outside the NIMO.
Yeah, you just zip up to the vending machine there. Yeah, it's like a Best Buy. It's like the machine you buy headphones from at the airport.
It's incredible that they have that, at the hospital where they treat. And in the background, you hear kids playing at a nearby playground. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's.
There's like houses across the street. It's like it looks like housing across the street.
Not to say that there is a proper setting for it, but if there is a place where it shouldn't be, I guess this would be one. You've talked quite a bit about these type of things. I know BC is kind of the forefront of dealing with these types of.
It's the forefront of lunacy and piss poor policy, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have nothing to say. I just
there's nothing to say. And so in typical Joey fashion, I will say there's nothing to say and then talk for 10 minutes. This is a shit policy idea. These machines, if you want to see people reducing their harm in the street, and just there's great videos of people just flicking fucking syringes onto the road, getting too close to children and families and stuff in neighborhoods that used to be safe. There's tons of evidence that these people are dangerous when they're high, and even more dangerous when they're looking to get high. There was just a guy killed on the link here in Hamilton over the weekend in the middle of the night because he walked onto the freeway, probably high or some mix of searching and coming down. These things they're unfortunate, to be sure. But again, my beef is that they're avoidable, and that there's a lot of data that shows that harm reduction doesn't work if it's the last stop on your continuum. Harm reduction has to be a stop before total abstinence, total removal of these things from your life. And the removal of these things from your life requires effort, requires discipline, requires community, and requires continuity. And you don't get any of those things if you're just grabbing supplies from the vending machine. Maybe the most telling part of that article, remember what they couldn't get out of the machine because there was none left? Crack
No.
pipes. Crack pipes.
Oh,
Yeah. So they got the cocaine kit. They wanted the crack pipe kit, but there was none left.
Do you remember that guy that set up a stand and I think he was selling meth? Was he selling it? It was in
Yeah, I remember that.
BC.
I remember that.
He
Yeah.
ended up
And then he
passing
died.
away.
He died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that guy was a true entrepreneur. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He would have been a good interview, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. She would have been a good. Jesus Christ.
Well, it would have been awesome to talk
if there's an appetite for it, we talk about addictions a lot. I would, if people want to talk about it, I would ask Regan, who's the CEO of Wayside House, to come on and talk about harm reduction and abstinence and what we do at Wayside, and his history with addiction services and the sort of ins and outs and dealing with the provincial healthcare systems and some of the bureaucratic wins, some of the bureaucratic losses in terms of the sort of fortress that the province and the Fed have put up around these services. There's a lot of good going on, but it's hard to pivot the ship. And there's just so many loud voices and so much money behind harm reduction. It's scary. And I would love to talk to him on this show. If you guys wanted to hear from him, that is, like, I won't bring on a guest unless it's something that's, at least reasonably on brand for us. But it feels like we talk about this so often, and it's usually just my voice you hear. It might be worth hearing a guy who's, not just professional. I would say he's, one of the foremost experts in the country on this stuff and on the outcomes and the data and what the data shows.
There's a CTV article that's was published last week. It was a doozy, Joey. It's the title was "More Humid Than Usual. It Might Be the Corn," and they're not talking about Bitcoin.
Oh my god!
So apparently, higher humidity is a result from crops. Environment and Climate Change Canada senior climatologist David Phillips says that
When did we start that name change? By the way, it used to be Environment Canada. Now it's Environment and Climate Change Canada. When did that happen? I feel like I should know that, but I don't remember that happening. Did it? It must have. I don't remember when it happened.
Well, they threw an extra C, and so apparently evapotranspiration or crop sweat is a major contributor to rising humidity levels, and that could fuel more extreme weather. And crop moisture doesn't make the air feel stickier. It could also fuel extreme weather events. Phillips explains that the additional humidity could act as a fuel for thunderstorms, causing them to become supersized and more destructive, all because of crops. And he says this could include hail, strong winds, and other types of weather. He says that crops do create weather, and often it just augments or adds to whatever is the current situation. And so it can make it worse, it can energize that storm, it can push it into the atmosphere, and it creates a situation where moisture condenses, it releases energy or energy storm, and the storm gets wilder. Remember, corn in the United States is subsidized quite a bit. I'm not sure about the same in Canada. It may be the case, but it's kind of ironic in a way that we have something that is subsidized that now may be a contributor to what they say is climate change. Like what the fuck? Like corn, man, not Bitcoin, but fucking corn is causing climate change.
Spin the wheel, man. Russia, climate change, whatever it is, corn. I had some delicious local corn with my dinner. Actually, it was very good. I can't remember where.
Did it feel more humid as you're eating it? By the way, could you just?
I don't know if it was just sweating because it knew it was going to be eaten, but it was sweating a little more than normal. So humid in the house, the windows are fogging up. This is just so dumb. This is just so dumb. Like, what else are you gonna say about this? Like,
yeah, that's why it's for this show.
Corn sweat, Len.
For this show, it's fucking fitting. All right, I guess a couple more stories here. The federal government and the city of Toronto, they have partnered to protect communities from worsening floods. So they moved together to modify the Black Creek and Lavender Creek channels, and they're going to construct a new floodplain protection wall and several bridges, and there's going to hopefully make it better. So, if there's a lot of rain, it's not going to flood people's homes. They say, this is the part that I absolutely love. They say, this is according to Canada.ca, every dollar that's invested in adapting and preparing for climate-related disasters, so every dollar can return as much as $13 to $15 in return.
Is this an Elon Musk AI YouTube stream? What is it? These are better returns than Michael Saylor sending to ETH. Are you kidding me?
So I've done some research. Good rates of return, strong is 5%, and 10% is supposed to be very, very good. For every buck, they're getting back 13 to 15%. This blows the shit. Blows the shit out of the water. So
Cassie Wood, eat your heart out. Oh, fuck.
Talk about a money printer.
I didn't see anything in the ARC Big Ideas portfolio about floodplain investing.
That's where I'm putting all my fucking money into it, and I'm gonna make a fucking shitload. Like, this is just
get
perfect.
So rich.
Yeah, and Olivia Chow is part of this whole announcement.
She took a break from dancing for this. That's good. Okay,
yeah, good for her. So, yeah, nothing I gotta say about that. I just like, good for them. What a great return of investment.
Incredible. Why would they like this? This is such a good litmus test for like the whole how smart is your population? Like, how smart is your voter base? Well, not that smart, because they can't figure out that $2 returning $15 is completely
one buck is getting 15.
Completely ridiculous. Like, just
number go up.
Insane.
Fuck Bitcoin, because that store of value is blowing.
We gotta get Canadian Floodplainers podcast. We're ready. Next week we're switching over. The brand is changing. I'm getting my wife on the horn right now. Start making the new graphic.
All right, last story I think we'll talk about is CPP. I'm not sure if you follow the CPP investment board, but they plan to spend $300 million plus, up to $450 million. No, this is for a 10-year lease that they plan to get through CIBC Square. And remember, they're there for people's pension, and they're trying to get this. Apparently, this is the most expensive office space in the country. This is according to this article. And they say this meets commercial objectives as well as attracting new talent. At a time where people aren't going 100% to the office, downtown Toronto, they've been talking about this for some time. The business there are struggling because people are not working 5 days a week in the office. Why would the CPP invest this much money? Where does the money come from? I'm guessing from the actual pension itself, or in some way, somewhere from there. But that's a lot of money, and just try to attract new talent. I would think that new talent would prefer to work from home more than anything. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the people want to go to the office and hang out at CIBC Square. But man, it's a lot of money that they're spending here. 300 million plus. It could be 450 million, all said and done.
Who owns the building now? Any idea?
CIBC Square. I'm guessing. I believe CIBC themselves own it, and they just lease out the. So
interesting. So they're bolstering the bank's portfolio. Presumably, they hold a significant portion of bank stock, right?
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
So that's a bit of a interesting dynamic there. Someone will have to tell me whether or not that's fraudulent. Probably not fraudulent, but it's very interesting. I don't know. Like, the reason you don't want to go to work in Toronto at the office is because there's just people reducing their harm all over the place. Not to mention that the likelihood that you get run up on by a Palestinian protest is like 1 in 4 at this point. Like the pictures from the air show, guys with their families, and these people with Palestinian flags just like screaming at them, just trying to watch some planes, bro.
Did you see Byward Market?
Yeah, insane. Just trying to eat my fucking lunch. Yeah.
Where did they get the smoke from?
Crazy. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. Oh my God. Listen, I don't know anything about that cause, but I'll tell you something right now, okay? If you're on the street with a flag or a sign, you're a loser. I don't care what your cause is. And actually, it's funny. Me and Mark were talking at lunch, and he said the same thing. Like, it's just like, if you care this much, there's better ways to focus that energy that will yield better results for you and your loved ones in your community than that. And you got to think about that when you decide to hit the streets with a smoke bomb. Just give it up.
Palestine, I'll have to give them credit. They have a higher GDP per capita than India does. Did you know that? And it's like 50% higher.
That's great. Good. Wow.
Than India. Now, keep in mind, the amount of poverty in India is driving that down. You got 1-something billion people. There's a lot of people that are earning fuck all over there. So that's really driving that number down.
What?
But if you just look at, I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just trying to say that if you look at the GDP per capita of Palestine, it eclipses India.
Are they ahead of us? Like what our GDP per capita is going down all the
No.
time. We're 7 of 8 quarters down now, right? I'm pretty sure 7 of the last 8.
It's got to be like decades if that trend continues for this to cross. No, it's nowhere near.
Nice. We're poorer than the Rust Belt states. That's interesting, though, isn't it? That so India's got a really low GDP per capita, and we're bringing over a lot of people from India. Is that good? Like, is that good for our GDP per capita? From a mathematics standpoint, it's not. But from like a talent standpoint, is it? There's a case to be made, right? That maybe it's not from a talent standpoint either.
If we're bringing people from like that are graduates of ITT,
ITT Tech.
Yeah, I think it's the name of the school.
The midday talk show college.
No, the MIT version of India's MIT.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, we'll take those people, but
they're apparently brilliant when it comes to IT.
If you were a brilliant Indian or any other nationality, excuse me, would you come here first though? Like this is the other.
That's
thing.
a great question.
Yeah,
I suspect United States might be top of the list because of the earning potential that you could get over there
For
and
sure.
businesses that are set up and so forth. I don't know.
It's too
Canada
bad.
could be used as a bridge. Maybe.
Yeah, it's too bad. I just want to, before we wrap, I want to say that like we went pretty hard on the immigration thing tonight, and for good reason, I think. But there's a lot of really good people who come from other countries who really want a fair shake in Canada and want to contribute and want to assimilate and do all these great things. I welcome those people and I encourage more of that. I have some great friends who are immigrants. Len and I are both, sons of immigrant families, and there's so many good things that come from immigration when it's done properly, when it's vetted, when people come here and have to set up shop and contribute and produce and grow, with the country. What we've done is not yielded these results. And this is really where the concerns are for us, not in the people, but rather in the process and the results from those processes, that process. So anyway,
let's wrap it up, Joey.
Let's wrap it up.
God bless you. You know what? It's been a while since we had one of these non-Bitcoin shows, but I think
since like Christmas, it's been like probably 8 or 9 months. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to cleanse ourselves. And I feel better. It's just serenity now. So we can move forward. Next week, we'll do some Bitcoin stuff again and get back to the regularly scheduled program.
Sure. I can't wait. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We love you guys. We'll see you. Well, Len will see you Wednesday with Jonathan, but we'll be back as always Monday night with more quality Bitcoin content next week, not just notables. Anyway, we'll see you soon.
And don't be a cock.